I received a few comments of the last video, the JFK assassination partially explained part 6, three theories. And out of the three theories, the one that most people seem to disagree with me was the one that I think is the most obvious and most easily debunkable. The idea that if there was a conspiracy, that the people in the limo would be the last people to be involved in the conspiracy. If they knew, if anybody in that car knew that there was a plot to kill the president, they would not be in that car. You know what I mean? So anyway, so that's the one that got the most, I think, comments that people disagree with me. I think if you just stop and think for a second, that you would volunteer, no matter the amount of money or the sense of purpose, you would volunteer to be in the line of fire from 3 different locations, supposedly 3, maybe even more. It seems to me obviously that a reasonable person would not put themselves in that situation. So anyway, but a few of the comments actually made good points. Oh, it's nice to know that one of my followers, one of my subscribers, is Walt Disney. I know the guy's dead. I don't know when he died, a long time ago. But you would think he would have better things to do than be one of my subscribers and be commenting as much as he does, And I don't quite get this guy. I don't know if he's being serious. Is he joking? He seems to think. I forgot to take my gun out. He seems to think some crazy stuff, but he actually made one good point, and he wrote quite a bit, and it took me a while to read it because he seems to be almost like a poem. He writes like if he's writing a poem. Well, anyways, though, in one of his comments he writes, best point to shoot Kennedy was on Houston, coming towards the 6th floor, coming towards what I think he means the book depository, the assassin's windows. And that's actually back when I first saw the movie JFK by Oliver Stone. One of the questions that I had that I wanted to answer for myself is why, if I could figure out a reason why the assassin on the 6th floor, why wouldn't he shoot the president as he's coming down Houston Street? It was a much better, clear view. There was no trees. Why would he wait to where there's trees and stuff? It made some sense, at least to me. It made some sense of what Oliver Stone said in the movie, what his character said in the movie. One of the things I think it was Kevin Costner and I don't remember the other guy's name. They were on the 6th floor by the assassin's window, and they were both like thinking, why wouldn't he shoot over here? It's a much clearer shot. Why would he wait? And the only reason they said was because down here you can get them from 3 different directions. It's I think they said a turkey shoot, which I never heard that phrase. I actually don't know what it means. But what I think it means, it was an easy shoot, right? So anyways, that was one of the 3 questions that I had that I wanted to answer for myself. Why would Lee Harvey Oswald wait to shoot? Why would he not shoot on Houston Street and wait to shoot on Elm Street, which was the car was going away, instead of coming forward? His view would be obstructed. There's quite a few reasons to have that question. It's a legitimate question, and the Warren Commission didn't even bother to try to answer it. So that's actually a pretty good question, and I think I have a pretty good answer for it. But the answer that the movie JFK the movie came up with is a legitimate answer. It's a good reason to wait on Elm Street if you want to shoot from 3 different locations. One of those locations being the grassy knoll, the picket fence. So that's actually a pretty good point. But I disagree with the movie, and I think I have a good reason for it. I don't want to give it away just yet because I want to wait until I've already given away too many of my points, I think. But that's one of the points. I wanted to, like I said, I have 3 questions. I wanted to figure out either a good answer for all 3, or a good explanation why things didn't go the way they seem to have gone. So that was one of them. The other one of my 3 questions was why were the windows open? Was it actually policy for the Secret Service to close all the windows? And I guess I can tell you the answer to that one. Yes, it was policy. The guy in charge in Fort Worth had gone around locking all the windows, making sure they were all closed. So it doesn't make sense why in Dallas later in that same day the windows would be open. It was actually a good point that they brought up in the movie, and it's a good point that a lot of conspiracy theorists have brought up, have claimed, made a good point they've made. And there's honestly not a good answer to it. I think I have an answer to it, but it's not as good. It's a plausible answer. It's not a solid answer to it. It's one of the points that conspiracy theorists have, that I have an answer to it, but my answer is a little flimsy. It's just an answer, but it's not a solid answer where I can say, well, no, you're wrong. I can't really say that they're wrong. I just have an answer that okay, this is the answer. The Secret Service in Dallas, they all got drunk the night before. So my answer is they just didn't get up early enough to go close all those windows. So it was just a stupid mistake, and that the Secret Service did that day. People make mistakes all the time, so this is one of those. It just so happened that it was the worst mistake they could have made in their careers, But that's the answer. You could easily say, well, that's a little bit of a shitty answer, or a crappy answer, when something so big happened because of that, But that's the only answer I've been able to come up with, other than that there was a plot and the Secret Service in on it. And okay, my third question. What the hell was my third question? Hold on. What the hell was my third question? My third question, when I came out of the movie, I had 3 questions. Was the rifle the real rifle? Was there supposedly there was a German rifle found, and then later on it became an Italian rifle? And I did find the answer to that one, and it's also quite simple. Is that the people that found it, the actual guy, police officer Doom, I can't remember his name, Celestine. He said that when he called it a German rifle, he was just referring to the bolt action. He didn't actually see the German name, a Mauser. He didn't actually see that it was a Mauser. He just called bolt action rifles Mausers. Back then, I guess, in his group of rifle owners, I guess, they called bolt action rifles Mausers. And I'm a little bit experienced with rifles. I actually, since I was a young kid, I've had rifles. I used to be in the rifle team in the high school, and I've never called them Mausers. I've never heard anybody call them Mausers. Bolt action. Everybody calls them bolt action rifles, So I've never heard that before. But I grew up in the 70s and 80s, right? So the 60s could have been completely different, especially on the east side of Texas. They could have completely different terminology for their rifles. So that was that guy's explanation why they thought it was a Mauser, because it was a bolt action rifle. But it's not a very good explanation, but it's the explanation that guy gave, right? So that's pretty much. It sounds a little flimsy, but that's what the guy said, right? But anyways, I wanted to talk about the comments. There's another comment. This other guy, Google user Let's see if I can find it real quick. Okay, he was the one that was. He's one of the guys that thought that my idea that nobody in the car was in the conspiracy, if there was a conspiracy. He disagrees. He says that he would have been if somebody offered him enough money, he would have been there. I disagree. I don't think you would be there, even though you think you would be there. If it actually happened, I don't think you would volunteer, or at the very least, you wouldn't be as calm as those people in that car were. You can see them in the pictures. They seem to be laughing, especially the governor and especially his wife. They were having a good time. I'm 100% sure that Governor Conley was not in on any conspiracy. And as soon as somebody like E. Howard Hunt, as soon as he implicated Governor Conley, I knew that he was full of shit. There's no way in hell that Governor Conley was in on any kind of conspiracy. Not just because he was in the car, but because he put his own wife in the car, and you can see him in pictures laughing and having a really good time. There was no way in hell that would be in his head as they're driving down towards Elm Street. So I lost my train of thought. So I'm there's my scenario, my long scenario, starting from when Lee Harvey Oswald was in New Orleans all the way until the autopsy of the president. I think I have a pretty good explanation for everything in my scenario, and I'm not 100% sure of everything in there, but one of the things I'm 100% sure is that nobody in the car was in on a conspiracy to kill the president. That's one of the very few things that I'm 100% sure of. I can't find all the comments I wanted to talk about, but okay. Okay, supposedly, according to Sharon Rice, show that the fingerprints were not Malcolm Wallace. I have looked for this information myself, and I cannot verify its credibility. I think she meant to use another word, but I think she meant to use credibility, right? Well, anyways. Credulity means something different, but who am I? I misuse words all the time. Who am I to criticize? And she talks a little bit about Gerald Posner. I read his book. I think I stopped maybe halfway through it because I really didn't like his way of investigation. I didn't like that he thinks he could read people's minds almost. I didn't like that. And I don't think he actually explains. It's a long time ago that I read the book, so I don't remember it exactly, and I didn't read the whole book. So like I said, I actually let somebody borrow it, and I haven't seen it back. But I wasn't planning to keep reading it. It was I just didn't like his way of investigating or coming to conclusions. But one of the things that I think, as you're investigating the assassination or trying to convince other people that you found answers, that you can't ignore evidence, especially evidence that people in general think it's extremely important. One of the things that this guy ignored, or at least ignored, and I've seen him interviewed, and in the interviews he's never spoken about it. He seems to ignore the question, and or I'm not even sure if somebody's asked him, but he doesn't talk about it. And in the book, he didn't cover it, at least in the part of the book that I read, right? So I didn't finish reading the book. But anyways, he doesn't cover quite a few things that it's like the Warren Commission, and like most of these people that are on the side of the Warren Commission, there's plenty of things in there that at first glance do point to a conspiracy, and they need to be investigated, need to be explained, they need to be something. You can't just ignore it, and that's what the Warren Commission side of the people on the Warren Commission side seem to do, is they just ignore the things that do. There are things in there, things that coincidence or whatever they were, that point to a conspiracy, and you need to figure out what the hell was really going on. You need to figure out an explanation for them. You can't just ignore it, and that's what this guy does. Gerald Posner. I lost my train of thought. So anyways, there's quite a few comments that I liked and were interesting, and even some people gave me advice. That's great. I want more of that. I want this to be interactive as much as possible. Mm, I guess that's it. I actually made a mistake. One of the three questions I had when I came out of the theater, I don't know of the three that I mentioned earlier. I don't know which one is wrong. There are all those three questions are good questions, but actually one of the three questions I had when I came out of the theater, and one of the claims the movie JFK by Oliver Stone made was that the route of the motorcade was changed at the last minute. I think, if I remember correctly, in the movie they said early that morning they changed it. They changed it from going straight on Main all the way to I can't remember the name of the highway, but to the highway that would take them to the to where Kennedy was going to give a speech. They changed it according to the movie. They changed it from going straight on Main to the highway to going on Houston Street and then on Elm Street and then the highway. And that, to me, if true, was pretty damning. That would mean you want to be in the video.
I was walking in, I was watching videos, and all I hear is you talking to yourself. And I turn and you're going. Sorry.
Háblale a tu mamá dónde está y we'll go catch up. Call her, don't text her. Okay, so supposedly they changed routes, right? And I thought if that was the case, if that turns out to be true, then that's pretty much it. That Lee Harvey Oswald on his own wouldn't have been able to do that. The assassin, it was too much of a coincidence, right? So if that was the case, then there was a conspiracy. So I figured, I don't remember exactly which were my three questions. I remember that they were three, and I remember that was one of them. That if the route had been changed at the last minute earlier that day, then that would be too much of a coincidence for it to have not been a conspiracy, and a pretty big conspiracy at that, right? So anyway, so I think, I don't know, I think that was one of my questions. The other one was the rifle. Was the rifle, did it actually change from a German to an Italian rifle? Why did Lee Harvey Oswald, or the assassin, why did he wait from Houston Street, a much better shot, to Elm Street, a much worse shot if there was one assassin, but much better shot if there were multiple assassins? I think those were my three questions, my three original questions. But anyways, I developed much more questions, and I think I was able to find reasonable answers to pretty much all of them. Oh, well, the answer as to was the route changed at the last minute? No, it was not changed at the last minute. What actually happened, and why I think the confusion, where the confusion comes from, is that in the newspaper, when it was announced the actual route, there was a drawing that seemed to draw that it would go straight through Main and then to Elm Street. I mean, not Elm Street, to I can't remember the name of the highway, but it starts with an S, something, I don't remember. Well, anyways, though, it but in actual words, it described the route, and in that description, it included Houston and Elm Street. And then on the very day, the morning, in the newspaper again, and they made it more detailed. And then in the drawing, you could see that it would turn. So it's not technically the people that said that the route changed were not lying. They just misunderstood the data. That route was not changed. It was just made more clear that morning. And by the way, you can't go straight through Main and then onto that highway. You cannot. You have to take a turn on Houston Street and then on Elm Street to get on that highway. And that highway was the one that's going to take him to his next speech, to his dinner, to our luncheon. I can't remember what they called it. So anyway, so that the answer to the route change, it did not change, and that was a pretty big one. And when I figured that one out, I was actually a little bit relieved. And like I said earlier, I think I have answers to all the other ones that are legitimate, and even in some cases, in most cases, I would say more probable answers than the conspiracy theorists have come up with. Even better answers that the Warren Commission came up with. And I know I'm boasting a little bit, but that's actually the case. I guess that's it.